Today's ASMR ramble video is going to be a video response to Sapling Tarot, and it's called On Having a Tarot Deck Collection. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't show my face, so what I figured I would do is, as I'm talking, I'll just flip through cards so you kind of have something to look at. I might only do a few cards from each of these decks, but I went ahead and put two out. This is the Embroidered Graveyard Tarot, and this is a Cerulean Sequence. So I'm going to start with the Graveyard because it's one of my faves. And we'll see how this video goes. So let's see, are these the right direction? No, they're not. So their first question is, I think I have these, sorry. I have these, are they all upside down? Okay, they're all different. I have them all cattywampus, as they say. So her first question is, how long have you been collecting decks? So sort of the first deck I ever got was, I think, back in 2010 or 2011, maybe 2011, and it was the Shadowscapes Tarot. I think that's when I got it. And it'd be funny if it actually didn't come out till later. It's completely false memory or something. That was the first deck I got, and I can't remember exactly why. I think I had seen her, somehow found her art on her webpage and saw she had a deck and thought, wow, that's a really nice way to own a bunch of her art, like to have access to a bunch of her art. But then I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, tarot is actually kind of a useful tool, and something I wanted to use. But I think for a long time that was it. And then like probably around 2018, 2019, I learned about oracle decks and got my first oracle deck, and that was, is it called Shaman's Way? Oh, I don't remember. It's over there on the other side of the room, so but I'm not gonna get up because I'll end up knocking my setup over if I do. So those were when I first got, but I really I think I had sort of periodically gotten a few things since then, but it actually started in really sort of in a big way in 2023, I believe. So I remember was trying not to spend money on, like, no, wait a second. I had actually, let me see. I think it was really actually maybe more like 2021. Yes, okay, that it started to grow, because I remember my friend and I met up sort of halfway between us. We live in different cities, and it was when there was that sort of lull in COVID, kind of when we thought, oh, maybe it's getting better, that summer of 2021. And while we had met up, I'd gone to a bookstore and had been looking specifically for a deck with animals, and that's where I got, I think it's called Spirit Animals Tarot. It's published by CICO. I always call it Psycho, but I guess that's probably not what it's called. But anyway, so it started out kind of, bits and pieces here. Like, oh, I learned about that. I went and looked for it. Oh, I think specifically, I liked that deck because I had like a number of dreams with a nautilus in it, and I had no idea why, and they were like these enormous nautiluses, so it just sort of made me interested in like animal meanings, and that's how I think I ended up with that, looking at that deck. But then like I got a couple others, and then I found out about Lenormand, and that's when I got the Waldira deck, and I think I'd like to do a video with some of my Lenormand. I always say Lenormand, but I think it's not pronounced that way. So things just slowly started happening, but then yes, in 2023 is really where it kind of took off in like in crazy. At first, it was more sort of just like, oh, really getting back into it and realizing like how many amazing decks were out there. And at first really learning about Kickstarter. Oh, I think back in like 2021 might have been the first time I did Kickstarter. I had kind of a bad experience with it. But then when I found out about other projects and stuff, I ended up giving it another chance. And I'm glad I did. But just a really long answer to the first question. We're already like 7 minutes in. But in 2023, so it was sort of like kind of slowly, like growing, and then in 2023 some really bad stuff happened, and it got very compulsive, and it was like that for a few years, and while financially that was not great, there's a couple of things. One, if I was gonna like lose it and become like both financially and also just like compulsive, like I have alcoholism in my family, like 2 generations back, but if I'd rather have my compulsion be to buy tarot and oracle decks when my world's falling apart than drugs or alcohol. Just saying. I'd rather let the dopamine hit from beautiful artwork, supporting artists. That helps me with self-reflection and honing my intuition. So it wasn't great, but it's also like, I think it's one of those things that ended up being a little bit like silver lining. And while not totally quote unquote cured, a lot of the compulsion is starting to fade. Now that doesn't mean the collecting, but it's like I have sort of more, not total, but more control of like, yes, I'm getting this. No, I don't have to get this. Or no, I can go to sleep without having bought this. Like I would get where like I couldn't, like I'd be trying to fight the urge to like purchase the deck, whatever decks, for hours and hours. I mean, it was nuts. And eventually I'd do it. The only way for me to like get to sleep was like, okay, I had to just finally do it. Like I couldn't, as hard as I tried to stop myself, I just could not. But I have come a long way in regaining control of myself again. Not perfect, and I'm never gonna stop I don't intend to stop collecting, but I'm glad to be building back the not just self-control really, because it's more like building a more stable life again, so that you're not sort of wildly flailing out to have something to hold on to and to kind of keep you sane. So to be a little more financially responsible, and yeah, so So that's that's kind of a weird answer. So it's like, it hasn't been, you know, so I guess it kind of like my first experience started like 20-ish, 2011-ish. Collecting started maybe more like 2020, and then 2023 is when it sort of went wild. And okay, so let's do a new jack for each question. Oh my god, my cat is just losing her mind. I don't know if you can hear her. Ooh. Let's see. So the second question is, what kind of collection do you have? And she gives some examples. So she says minimal, utilitarian, aesthetic, historical, etc. I'd call it probably eclectic with a leaning towards like, I'm trying to think what the aesthetic would be. So like, let's use the cerulean sequence now. It's really just anything that strikes my fancy. So like, you saw the graveyard, embroidered graveyard, so it was embroidery. And then we have the cerulean sequence here, and it's kind of a whole different like numerology with a sort of mystical, mysterious aesthetic, blues and whites. I found I really do like blue and white, especially like the blue and white together, especially blue or bluish gray in terms of a color. Like if you were going to have a deck that's a single color, or like two colors and like one predominant, it would be this kind of blue or blue gray. But yeah, I like all kinds of things. I think one of the big things for me is if there's a good guidebook, that can make all the difference in the world. Because I don't know, I just like them. I'm a very verbal person. One of the reasons I like tarot and oracle is it kind of helps me tap into the visual, which is not where my natural abilities not lie, or not the abilities that I've honed. And so I think a guidebook kind of helps me bridge that gap a little, as well as I like seeing how an artist or a creator interprets their vision. And so in some ways I almost feel like a deck is incomplete without a guidebook. I know that it's not true or fair or whatever, but I guess for me it's incomplete, like for my needs or desires. But I do still like decks that don't have guidebooks. So I'd say it's definitely not minimal or utilitarian. I guess it's like I said, it's eclectic. The aesthetics are all over the place, but I am looking for a lot of times like something beautiful, or if not beautiful, then like compelling to me visually in some way, or theme, or sometimes just random. I mean, a lot of my stuff's just random. I also really like nature decks. I tend to prefer oracle decks over tarot, even though I have a lot of tarot decks. I'm more likely to get a tarot deck that is beautiful than just a tarot deck. So even ones that look really interesting and probably are really good utilitarian wise, you know, like I probably, if I'm in my right mind, so not 2023 kind of mind, or 2024, or part of 2025, if I'm in sort of my right mind, it's generally something I find very visually compelling, especially also things like, so for example, I have over here the Floridian Mythos, something that's like, it doesn't have to be hand drawn. And I even have, I think, like a couple AI decks, maybe even. There's one I actually ordered yesterday that I was like, I cannot, I'm sorry. And but I like things that I can tell like an artist has put their heart into. I like place-based decks, even if they're not places that I live. So like Pacific Northwest, some things like that. So things that are themed around a place like that one, Florida, Great Lakes, Southern Gothic, Cajun, those kind of things. So yeah. I'll go ahead and answer number 3 as well with this deck. It says, are you a completionist? For the most part, I think yes, where possible, especially with like indie decks. If there's a series, I'm looking to get in on that. I don't necessarily get new editions unless there's some sort of significant change, or for example, there's one called like the Wild Wolf Tarot. I've always loved wolves since I was a child. I had the original edition that actually started 2023. That was sort of like my gateway back into actual like collecting. But then she came out with a second edition on Kickstarter, and I backed it because I liked wolves and I liked the deck, but I also backed it. That was probably the first deck I think I backed where I thought, okay, I want to support this artist, like in particular. Like, yes, I want the deck, but it wasn't like I was like, oh, I have to have this edition. It was more like kind of the whole situation. So I would say I'm a completionist in the sense like I would like I tend to try to get like the Southern Gothic is another good example. I owned the Southern Gothic Oracle and the Southern Botanic Oracle, but and I had the Hans expansion. But when she came out with the Hans Oracle, I was like, well, I want to get the Oracle, but it was like financially, or not financially, like the discount was such, it's like if you got the 3 new ones together, with the 3 new ones. But if it had like a Hans that was in a similar box and stuff as the others, I'd probably have gotten that. I don't know. I guess let's say yes most of the time. Not necessarily all the time, but yes, if it came down to it, and even though I'm like, I didn't quite like the new thing that came out, like not a new edition, but like someone came out with another deck, but I really liked their other things, I probably would get it if I can. So yeah, I really am, but I tend to do that with anything I collect. So for example, I love the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's like an all-time favorite TV show, and I have all the comics, well, not I think all, but like a handful. And I have a bunch of the paperbacks, and while I've only read some of the paperbacks, I would like to get them all. Like, I'm not gonna go out with those. I'm not gonna go out and like run and like buy them all, but I keep my eye out for them, like if I'm at a used bookstore or something like that. So it's not quite compulsive as much in the way, or active in the way it is currently with tarot and oracle. But as a collector, like for the things that I collect, I'd say I am generally completionist. Part of that, again, I think is more like I'm a compulsionist, and so once I have that my eye fixed on something in that way, it's kind of hard to get out of it. So let's see what I have next. Here's a deck that's new to me. No, I'm not gonna do that one. I'll put that in a future video. I'm gonna do, I guess this kind of goes along with that one. I have the 10th anniversary edition of the Prism editions, which originally I wasn't gonna do, but I saw in someone's video it was actually more different than the others. The other edition, well, I have a few versions of the Prism. The only one I think I don't have is the Night Visions version. I have Light Visions, I have Prisma Visions, and of course like Cosmo Visions. But I wasn't originally going to do that because I was like, you know what, I got some control pack. Then I saw that like there was it wasn't like, oh, the shiny stuff got me. It was like the way someone was showing it, I realized was like it actually did make it different. Not like, oh, I want it different. It highlighted different things in the deck the same way his other versions do. You know, if you have the light visions one, and I think night visions is similar, it turns the images into very, you know, stark. It's either this color or that color. It's not, you know, oh, all these amazing different colors all swirled together. And so anyway, so I did end up getting this one. So there you go, completionist. But the next question was, how do you store, organize your collection? That varies. So there's some that are in like boxes in my closet. I'd like to have all my decks out, but I just don't have enough room. So those are the ones that either I wasn't really using, or didn't feel super connected to. A lot of those are ones that maybe, you know, in my most I've lost my mind moments, gone, but maybe, you know, like I said, don't necessarily feel any special connection to, but felt sort of compelled at the moment. In terms of the decks that are sort of out, how they are organized, it varies. I have a few different bookshelves, so, and I've done them differently over time, but I try to kind of have them out almost as if they were being displayed, like, you know, like some may be at an angle looking this way on the shelf, others like this, others stacked up, and it just kind of depends on how I feel like looking at it. I try to keep the ones by the same artist together. So for example, like James R. Eads decks right now, once I got the Oracle of Many Paths, I'm in a little bit of a conundrum on how to get it to fit, so it is not yet up on that shelf. But I did reorganize them, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago or something, my decks, and put some of like the real heavy hitters that I use, and also the ones that are just very aesthetically pleasing to me, or that I just find very special, or ones that really are parts of like a series together, and especially if they have like a big guidebook. I was gonna say, there was something else about that I was gonna say. I don't remember. Oh, I have another section that's organized where, like, even if I don't necessarily use the deck or feel like super connected to the deck, if it's a deck someone has gifted me, I have a shelf with the gifted decks. Now, some of my gifted decks are with others, like that are on the shelf that has those ones that I find like super aesthetically pleasing. But I liked having the ones that people gave me out because it felt, one, like they deserve a special place, even if it's not something that I am currently using. Like, I want to be able to see that. And I feel like there was another part of that answer, but yeah, I just feel like they're special in that way. So I want to be able to see them even if I'm not sort of actively using them. Let's see. Okay, the next question is, what is your favorite thing about your collection? So, oh, actually, there's one other thing. She might ask this later. I can't remember. I have like some notes, but I'm gonna put these away and get another deck for the next question. What I would say is, even the decks that I have in like my boxes, I've sold some decks like before, like mass market ones before, like at half price books or something. That was quite a while ago, and basically since then I've tried not to get rid of decks. I know a lot of people like to either call it declutter or rehouse. I don't like to do that because because I know that I go through sort of cycles in my life. Like I've seen myself do it. I know I do it. Where like I might be in something and then out of something and then back into something again. And so I just tend to be someone who can, like, I kind of believe, maybe that there'll be a right time and place for those. So I just hang on to them. So anyway, I sort of did that as sort of a preemptive, like if someone's like, oh, you shouldn't keep them in there, you should rehouse them, it's like, I don't want to. It'd be one thing like this, let's say, I don't really have tarot oracle friends in real life, or in like the non-virtual world, because virtual world's still real in a way. There was one I really didn't use and didn't feel anything special toward, and someone's like, oh my god, I love that, it's amazing, I would give it to him in a heartbeat. But I don't particularly want to like just get rid of something for the sake. The same way some people don't like to hold on to something for the sake of holding on to something. I don't want to get rid of something just for the sake of getting rid of something, if that makes sense. Or just because I feel like I'm supposed to if I'm not using it. They also just bring me comfort. The same way, like, I love to read, but I also just love books. So having them around is its own experience. Like, I don't know that you have to actively be using something for it to have an effect on you, positive or negative. Like, for some people, that effect would be like, oh, it's weighing them down, which it makes sense to declutter or to give away or sell or whatever. But anyway, so what is my favorite thing about my collection? So, Sapling Tarot talked about access to art, and I wrote in my notes exactly in caps. That is probably one of my favorite things, is that tarot and oracle cards tend to just have amazing art, and it's a way to like collect a whole lot of pieces of people's art, and then yet be more than that. Like that sort of like, that's just the beginning part. And so what I really love about my collection is just having all of these different art in all of these different art forms. Like this deck, for example, compares very simplistic. I mean, this is also like a Lenormand deck, but compared to something like Prismavisions, or even the embroidered graveyard. Like the embroidered graveyard, it's like embroidery. This is probably like pen and ink, maybe. So yeah, so I'm with her. Access to art. I like tangible beauty. It's like this beautiful thing I can interact with. Like I said before, I'm not necessarily visually gifted in terms of natural abilities, in terms of art. I'm a decent writer, but not artist. And sorry, I was trying to snow plow outside. I think we might have some thunder snow here later, but it's snow plow. I'm making this video on a day when we're in that winter storm, so we're getting like 18 inches or 15 inches of snow. What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, so I'm not as visually gifted. So like, let's say I go to a museum and I see art. I also usually am just very unmoved by it. Fault in my own heart, right? But there's something about being able to like physically interact with it that is so different to me than just staring at, like, so I can love staring at my tarot oracle deck, but no matter what I do when I'm staring at it, I'm always like interacting with it. And maybe over time my ability to be in like an art museum will change because of that. I don't know, because that really should be no different in some ways. But I think having access to all this different art really is one of my favorite things, and it brings the same way having a library of books does. I think there's a language, might be Japanese, it might be totally made up, for books where it's like the love of collecting and the love of reading are different, but they're both like beautiful. And there's some word about like, I think it's in Japanese where it's like having more books than you'll ever read is actually can be a really beautiful thing, because it's like you live in this room of worlds that some of which you'll have gotten to, some of which you'll haven't before you die, and there's just something I think really neat about that sentiment. I mean, yeah, anyway. So yeah, to me, like I said, the collecting is somewhat similar to books, my interaction with books. All right, next question. What is your least favorite thing about or something to improve your collection? So, this is the Floridian Mythos Tarot. So I would say I'd like to have a better way to organize so that I could literally have them all out. Oh, although then my family would know just how many decks I have. But I would like to be able to do that because I feel bad having them in boxes. I don't feel bad that I own them and they're in boxes. I just feel bad that they're sitting in boxes. And I feel like I would get more out of it if I could see them. You know, if I knew they were out there and my eyes could glance over them when they felt like it. Rather than, you know, same with like having books, you know, in boxes. It's the same thing. It's like I'd feel okay not using it and them being out, but I don't like them to sort of being hidden away. So I wish I had more room to organize them sort of out. And I think there are ways I could do it, but we'd need more bookshelf space in other parts of the house so that I could move some of the books out of this room and then have them up. I'd also like to expand my Lenormand collection, and I don't really use it or haven't learned to use that well. But I still like to expand it because, like I said, part of what I love about Tarot and Oracle is actually just the art and how you can interact with the art and how the art and the creator's vision and your own vision all sort of interact together to create things in your own mind and in your own life, and help you hone your intuition and all those things. So, and I realize like my Lenormand collection is pretty, there's not very many, which again, nothing wrong with that, but if I'm a collector, and so I actually have gotten a few decks. They're also usually much cheaper, even the indie, than if you were getting like a tarot. I mean, sometimes basically like half the price, like Lenormand decks. Some of them, indie ones, are like half the price of an indie tarot deck. So they feel a little more justifiable in that way. In terms of like, you know, if I'm trying to get a better hand on, you know, not being as compulsive or it's almost like the gateway from being like still a little too compulsive, but maybe not making as much of a like damage to my checkbook, or checkbook because I'm married. I'm like, we're okay. Like, I haven't put us in like financial ruin. I just mean like maybe it'd been better to save some of that money. Oh my god, that's horrible. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the next question. Let me get a different deck. And I'm trying to look because I have some decks out for various reasons, like right around me. So I'm trying to decide like which ones to pull out. So I guess the point is, what I'm trying to say is they're not necessarily pulled out because I intended to use them for this particular video. They're out for other reasons. reasons, and so so I'm kind of looking at them and thinking, okay, which one of these next do I want to use just for this particular video? And some, like, so for example, like this Floridian was out because I was using it not that long ago for some videos, so it was already out. Let me see. Let me grab. That one's a little too racy. I am going to. Oh my god, there's one's falling now. I have so many that are cascading away. And now I'm about to knock this over. This is a mess. Alright. Okay, I think I will choose. Let me stand up for a second and get to this without hopefully knocking everything down in the process. Okay, I was trying to reach for this one. I think this is one that I think he's used. AI? I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't have many AI decks, and I don't necessarily feel ambivalent about them because I think there are a lot of issues with AI. But I think I mentioned in a previous video, and these are just my opinions, I'm not trying to convince anybody otherwise. I do think some of the arguments against it are odd. Like, a lot of them are legit in my mind, but one of the ones that I think is odd is the, like, well, so and so didn't do that themselves. And it's like, I have plenty of tarot decks and oracle decks where the artist is not the creator, sometimes not even the writer, and it's like, how's that any different? You've outsourced the art to someone else already. In this case, these people are just outsourcing art to AI. But obviously, there are a lot of other issues with AI than just that. But when people make that argument, I feel like it's a little weird or a little inconsistent. But the next question is, what is the biggest category of my collection? I actually wrote, I'm not sure, I think Oracle. It might be tarot, but only because I think there's more tarot decks out there than there are Oracle. So especially like if I'm trying to certain art or I'm trying to certain guidebook or what have you, there's just more out there. So yeah, I think probably the thing that the and I guess category you can take kind of any way you want. And so I'm thinking the category of like Lenormand, Oracle, and Tarot. And I'd say it actually probably is Tarot's the largest, but probably because of there's just to me it seems like there's a lot more Tarot out there than there are Oracle decks. I think that's changing, but and since what draws me to a lot of decks is the art, but not necessarily the art doesn't have to be the same. Like, this is very different than the Floridian mythos, right? So yes, that's a really quick question for me. I didn't have a lot to say on that one. What is the smallest category? Lenormand. I only have a few. Like I said, I want to expand that a little bit. Again, just like my other decks, the artwork. And in some ways, I feel like the artwork probably is going to matter more in that than any other type of deck for me, because those meanings are supposed to be much more static than even tarot. You know, they're much more rigid far as I understand, they read tarot, so you're not necessarily looking for a different way of reading it. You're looking for a different art that speaks to you in a different way. So yeah, all right. And do I have a holy grail in my collection? I'll go ahead and put this one away. Yes, and you've already seen it. It was the first deck I had in here, and it was the Embroidered Graveyard. It has literally made me cry. I have both the black and the white edition because I love it so much. It's basically the one indie deck I'm willing to take with me anywhere and feel kind of okay if it gets busted over time, because it feels so special, and it's special in a very personal way. Also, I did a video of it when I was out of the country last year talking about it, because I also feel like it's one of those decks that's so versatile that it's like, if I had one deck to take along with me anywhere, it would be that one. So that's, I guess, maybe that's not the right way to take Holy Grail, but that's how I took it. Let's see. Like I said, I have ones around me, so I'm basically like grabbing them as I sort of see them, and I'm like, what do I have here? So they're kind of like, they're both random and not. They're definitely not a good overview of like all the different types of decks I have. But I think there is enough variety to get kind of a sense of like a lot of like different stuff. Okay, question number 10. Do you ever wish your collection was bigger, smaller, or is it complete? I'm a total like object hoe, so a true American. So it could always be bigger, and I would not be sad about that. I definitely don't want it to be smaller. I wish I had a better way of using my space to display what I have, like I was saying earlier, but I don't necessarily wish I had less decks. I do, though, in terms of complete, I do feel like there's still a bunch of decks I would like started to keep a wish list instead of just like compulsively buying everything. But I would say in terms of the decks out there that I know about, I'm pretty complete, I feel like, in terms of what I, like, really want. Especially because some of the ones, like, if something does come out that I'm like, okay, that's just, I don't know. I'm not gonna keep babbling about that, but yeah, I really am happy with my collection. Are there more decks I like? Of course. But most of the things that I've had my eye on that I know about, I have most of those. But I still have my eye on a lot that I would like, but that maybe don't rise to like, oh my God, I really, really, that's really speaking to me a lot. Or, yeah. So let's go ahead then to the next question, because I know I've gone on a lot longer than I thought I would with each question. Though I don't know why, because I know I talk a lot. So I don't know why I'm surprised. It seems kind of silly that I'd be surprised that I talk so much. Because there's a total of 14 questions, and we're about to start 11. Well, this one's really easy. How often do you declutter your collection? Basically never. I've had a couple that have been mass markets that I sold back to like half price books. but I can't remember why. I don't remember if it was like looking for money or I think there might have been a couple that like the energy felt like I didn't want to see it, so like I got rid of it. But part of the reason I declutter is, one, again, to me, besides being functional, it's also a collection. Like, it's truly a collection and not in a, and for me it's a collection. Like, I guess I am a completionist, because for me it's not a collection in the sense of like it's a collection in the sense of like you're collecting it. Like, I'm not collecting it to like only be functional. I'm collecting it to be functional, to just own them, to have them in the future in case, like, you know, life changes and different things speak to me differently, or maybe I make a friend who something calls to them. I have given away things that, like, if I've had multiple copies, like for instance the Gentle Tarot, I've given away versions of that. So like I had the linen version, I don't have it anymore because I gave that to someone that I know, and so I've given away like an edition, but not necessarily like a you know, gotten rid of the whole deck, whatever. But so, and as someone who has worked in the curation fields, you know, there's a few different jobs out there that are related to curation and all that good stuff. I'm a big fan of, like, you might curate without, like, for what I have, like, right, I guess this is like how I do things, what's currently out, you know, like what you can see. It's like a museum exhibit, but that museum doesn't just have the things that you can see. There's a whole collection, you know, in the back, and there might be things rotating in and out in the front. And but so in many ways that's kind of how I treat my tarot, oracle, Lenormand cards. Is a little more like you would like in a museum collection. They are not meant to be gotten rid of, except for like good reason. And that's also, again, because I think for me one of the large draws is the art. So it's almost like having my own little art museum, rather than I think if I was purely a functionalist, decluttering would make a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? But that's not what I'm here for, or that's not the only thing I'm here for. I do use my decks, but that's not the only reason I get my decks, if that makes sense. And not the only reason I keep my decks. But like I said, I would also say, I think another thing in terms of utilitarian for me though is, you know, I never know. There are times where different things speak a different language to me. And so something might draw me in that used to not, and vice versa. So yeah. All right. But I understand, like I said, that's not me saying you shouldn't, because I think there's lots of reasons to do it, and lots of reasons why people do it, you know, like because of the way they want their collections to be, or interact with their collections. Okay, the next question is, do you ever get envious of seeing other people's collections? For good or for ill, no. And there's a couple reasons. One, like I said, the past couple years have been insane, and I've spent a lot of money collecting decks. So, yeah, I don't. Are there more decks that I'd like? Yes. Do I sometimes see people with those? Yes. If I see someone with a deck that I'm just like, OMG, well, I usually still get it. Either yes, or it's going on a wish list for an upcoming birthday or something. And the birthday better be coming up fast. And I actually had a friend who came up with an idea last year, which was brilliant, which she was like, you know, if you see a deck you're afraid it's going to get sold out, and you're trying not to buy it, ask your husband will he get it for you for your birthday? He can go ahead and buy it now. He can go put it in a closet and give it to you later. So he's already got his birthday present for you. You're not missing out on the deck, but you're not just like spending wildly. So like I said, I have a lot of decks, so no, I don't often feel envious. I also, I feel like there's only a couple people who I've come across so far on YouTube whose deck collections seem to mirror my own, and if not mirror, like overlap enough that I'm like, ooh. And those would be, and this answers really the next question, which is the 13th question is who on YouTube has the best collection videos? And I think this kind of overlaps, which is JD at Frost and Forest, who I mention a lot, and that's probably why, right? And then Waves of Your Soul. I like her deck haul videos, and I like the way she sort of shows all the card like backs at the front, and then it's kind of why I do mine that way a lot of times, that I was kind of inspired by that. And both of them have there's a lot of overlap, and like I've learned about new decks from both of them, and many of the decks that we're drawn to seem to overlap, and not, perfectly or anything, but that's good. We all have different things that we like. But a lot of times, at least of the YouTubers that I follow or have come across, a lot of the aesthetic just doesn't overlap. So I'd love to find more people that do, because I'm always, keeping my eye out for new decks. Although that being said, I kind of sometimes hope I don't, because then there's more struggles to keep myself from falling into the pit of FOMO. All right. So that answers also the number 13, who on YouTube has the best collection videos. Again, like I said, I'd say Waves of Your Soul in terms of like, like truly sort of like deck haul videos. There's other people that I follow who do a lot of those, which are neat, but I rarely see ones on there that I'm like, oh, I want to go check that out. But Waves of Your Soul is one. And then JD, I'm trying to think if she does deck hauls. She definitely showcases a lot of decks, in different videos. And so even if they're not sort of purely like collection videos, I like her collections, I guess, or her collection. And then the very last thing is, I'm just going to grab what's next, which is Eric Mills, The Endless Tarot. I have a little bag set up of things I wanted to like journal from. Did not end up doing that the other day, but that's where some of these decks have come from. Is that a card? No, that's the bottom of the box. So this one is a little longer too, so I know I'm getting close to like an hour. There's that magician card I had the other day, if you watched those videos about the magician. So it says, what's some advice you'd give to a future or new deck collector? So I have a few pieces. One is a warning. It's dangerous, especially if you have issues with dopamine or those kind of things. Because once you get a hit, it is like a little bit like a drug, or like anything basically anything can become a drug, and if it hits you the right way, and especially if you're someone who is prone to those kind of thing, your system is sensitive in that way, your brain. If if you have issues with compulsiveness, obsessiveness, I think I'd say be very careful, because there really is just so much out there. And because, especially if you're looking at indie decks, FOMO's real. Fear of missing out. There's some indie creators who have their decks in sort of a perpetual edition, you know, when it's out, they just print more. Or especially like if they, like I've had some creators who are like on Etsy, but they also have their decks on make playing cards. So I know they're never gonna just like not have them, because like make playing cards can make it for you. Or I mean, I guess they could, I don't know, close down that shop too, but they're not being made in like limited edition runs. But there are a lot of indie creators who do make things in limited edition runs, and for a variety of reasons. You know, there's a lot of like financial, you know, overhead and stuff that they have to do. So anyway, FOMO is real. That mostly applies to the indies, but again, I think if you have issues around obsessiveness, compulsiveness, you know, issues with basically issues around control and our mental. I mean, a lot of my issues are like mental. Have to do around like my mental illnesses, and so you just gotta be careful. I mean, again, if you have a lot of those kind of, sorry, that box just scared me. It just collapsed on its own. Like if you have those kind of issues, that's why people do things like turn to alcohol, turn to drugs. For some of us, this is our drug. So be careful. Once you've had that hit, it'd be hard to stop. Okay, the other piece of advice, another piece of advice is something I'm just going to echo Sapling Tarot when she said, be careful with money. Like I said, my collecting got very intense during a very intense, stressful, life exploding time. And like I said, better than becoming an alcoholic, but financially it's just a lot of money. Do I regret not having that money? I regret the feeling of guilt around having spent that money, but I don't regret owning the decks. If that makes sense. I feel two things at once with that. And then this is probably the piece of advice that I think maybe it's most useful, is because I would have liked someone to have told me this at the beginning, which is, let's say you're trying to be either really methodical because you want your collection to be complete, however that means to you, complete in a certain artistic style, complete whatever. I don't know what your version of complete would be. But whether you're methodical in that way, or you're being methodical in another way, like, I don't know, wanting to make sure you're aware of everything that's out there that you might want. Like, again, since things do disappear, so you're trying to make sure, like, you're seeing what's out there and deciding as it's coming out there. If that's what you're like, these are the places I would recommend going. And these are places that I recommend going even if you're not like uber methodical about it, which, and a lot of these people would know already, but if you're new, again, this is for someone who's new, is Etsy's where a lot of things are. You can also find things on make playing cards. Some good places are also, I mean, even Amazon's alright. I tend to try to get things through Barnes and Noble, and that's for a few different reasons. I mean, I know Amazon is a crazy organization we should probably not support, or Jeff Bezos is like, what the hell's wrong with that guy? But Amazon, often you can get better prices with stuff, but not always. So like, I've gotten where Barnes and Noble's my go-to, especially if you're doing pre-orders. And I do not work for Barnes and Noble, so this is not me like trying to sell you on them, but about 3 to 4 times a year they do a pre-order sale, and the pre-orders are 25% off unless you're a member, which I am. in which case you get another 10% off. So they're 35% off. I don't get the mass market decks. I don't find those. I mean, unless you get those like used somewhere, you're probably not going to find them cheaper than that. Definitely not on Amazon. So, so I keep my eye out for what mass market decks are coming out. And then I also, when those Barnes Noble pre-order sales come around, I either have those saved and then I go back through and do a fresh, like, let me check the publishers. So like US Games, CICO, Lilywin, like all of those different places to see like what's coming out. Yeah, so I very much recommend Barnes Noble pre-order times as times to get any upcoming decks, because even if you're not a member, you're going to get 25% off, and that's a lot. Like, it really is. And if you're a member, oh my god, 35% off is just amazing, and I love it. You know, if you order from Barnes & Noble, things get there a little slower than they do from Amazon, but who cares? And the other places I would recommend is obviously YouTube videos. Those are the like hit or miss. There's a few deck review websites out there. I always forget to check them, so like they're great, but unless you're gonna be good at like checking them on a regular basis, they might not be as helpful. So I didn't include any because I just sort of go to them. I end up seeing them more when I've already found out about a deck and I'm looking for more information about it, and that's where they can be really useful too. And YouTube's good for that too, even Instagram, you know, getting like a walkthrough. You're not always going to get guidebook walkthroughs for whatever reason. It seems like a lot of people, they'll just like sort of show you that a guidebook exists, but not really like give you information. And because I'm a guidebook goblin, that can be really frustrating. Which is why in my own videos I try to like get you at least, you know, a read through or something of one or two of them. And then of course Kickstarter. And here's what I do with Kickstarter. Because, you know, well, not because. I need to sort of explain something about it first so that I'm actually going to pull a deck that I haven't shown yet in just for shits and giggles. It's new while I'm talking, and if I run out with this one, I'll do another one. These are some Linderman decks. This is like a Midwest themed deck. Okay, so with Kickstarter, you can back decks, right? You can back people's projects. They're not guaranteed to have happened, even if they get funded. But I think I've backed like an obscene amount. And maybe there's one going on right now that's been sort of in limbo for a while, and it's unclear what's happened to the creator, like to the point that it's like I'm worried that creator, like something horrible has happened to them. But so the point being, for the most part though, people are going to deliver. Whether they deliver quickly or not, it's a different question. A lot of things are out of people's hands. You know, production timelines are tricky. I mean, we all know the tariff stuff is like the most absurd, obscene things in the world. But even with that, not the most absurd, obscene things in the world. There's a lot more absurd, obscene things in the world. What am I trying to say? I'm just saying it's effed up. But my strategy with Kickstarter is, one, you can look and see people can create a pre-launch page. So if they do have a pre-launch page, I sign up for it. And some of that's because I follow different creators and I'll see, oh, they're creating something. And so I go and I, you know, I'll pre-save. And that's nice because Kickstarter will email you once it's, I'll be like, hey, this was just launched. So you can go and boom, go ahead And a lot of times there's early bird prices. You get in early, so that's a good way to do that. The other thing I like to do is, on a somewhat regular basis, just go into Kickstarter and search, because people don't always do a pre-launch page super fast. You know, like it might not be pre-launch for months. Some people have them up there for months, some people don't. And so, you know, there's always things that slip by that I never notice, and it's usually, I think, because of that. So what I do is periodically, and by periodically I mean pretty often, I'll go on there and I'll search tarot, and you can have it show it to you like newest or most funded or things like that, and I'll just do newest because it'll show me like what's currently active and then what's coming. It'll also show me if things are in late pledges. So sometimes even if a Kickstarter has ended, they will continue to take pledges after it has stopped. And so that's a good way for me to keep an eye on it. But I don't just do tarot. I'll do tarot, oracle. I'll then do a search for oracle, do the same thing. And then I've just recently started to do the same thing. And by recently, I mean like a week or two ago, when I was thinking, you know, I'd like to expand my Lenormand collection. I started to add that to the like, hey, let me look. You know, you could probably also do something like deck, things like that, because sometimes people, you know, maybe call their things card messages or something, or, you know, you might even look at cards, but those are really the three I do: tarot, oracle, and now Lenormand. So that's what I would recommend if you're really into the indie scene and you're looking at Kickstarters. There are other crowdfunding sites, but I haven't really used them, so I can't speak to them. I think Indiegogo is one, if I'm remembering. And yeah, oh, the other thing I would say about Kickstarter is, let's say you don't want to back something. You're like, you know what? I don't want to take a chance. It shows you old campaigns. And so you can even organize it by like most funded. So if you want to see, oh, I wonder what like cool decks people really like, you know, where have gotten, and see what's out there, what people really liked. It's a good way to just see what decks are out there, and then you can go and search. Either they might have a button on their page that takes you to their Etsy shop or something now, or you just have the name of it. You can go search and see, is it either being sold by them, or can you get a copy on like eBay or something? I definitely, Kickstarter's great even if you don't use it to do the Kickstarter while it's happening. It can just be a really great way to go look. And again, like I said, I would just use basic terms like oracle, search for oracle, change the filter to show me newest first. Boom, you can see what's active and live. So yeah, so I know this video has been long, but I would say, I'm just going to reiterate this last part. Kickstarter's awesome. Check it out. Search oracle, search tarot, search Lenormand, change the filter to new or newest to look for what's currently going on. Check that on a regular basis. If you're just looking for some ideas for decks you might be interested in, you don't necessarily need to do newest first. If you go ahead and do the click notifications, if you are looking for things coming out that haven't yet come out, that will let you know as soon as it's available, which means you're probably gonna best chance to get an early bird discount. Again, don't work for Barnes & Noble, but would highly recommend their pre-order sales. They happen 3 to 4 times a year, usually. Like, I think this last one was right at the end of December. And so the next one will probably be March or April. And there's no like, oh, it has to be pre-orders only for the next couple months. Like, you could pre-order something right now that's coming out in December, as long as it's listed as coming out. You know, as long as the publisher has announced it. Even if that gets pushed back, So like I've had plenty where like it's scheduled to be published, I don't know, May, and the publisher pushes it back till September or something. It's like, oh well, I'll still get the for that price. So I highly recommend Barnes & Noble pre-order sale for a new mass market that's coming out, Kickstarter, and Etsy for indie. Etsy can be a little bit of a mess to search. Like you could search the right keyword and still get like all kinds of random crap. I guess another way I would say I might recommend searching with Etsy, or like if you want to kind of experiment is, okay, I'm going to talk briefly more about this. This is making me think I might want to do a video about searching on these different platforms, just because one, it might be helpful. I don't know if you're watching this and you think it would be helpful, let me know. Because at other times in my life, I've worked in professions in which navigating those kind of like databases and things is a big part of it, and so I'm usually decent at searching and also decent at knowing when like things don't work right, and so that you need to be aware of that and how to get around those kind of things. So like with Etsy, for example, you could search with keywords that you know should be bringing something up, and you know they're out there, and it's not bringing it up. Why? Who knows? Sometimes it's helpful then to go to Google and instead search there with an operator called site, S-I-T-E, and then a colon, and then you can do etsy.com and your keyword. Sometimes that can be more helpful. The other thing is to just let synchronicity and serendipity help you out, which is sometimes I've found decks just by going, you know what, instead of searching, I don't know, frog tarot, why am I not getting anything coming up when I know there's like 3 decks out there that are about frogs? But for whatever reason, the metadata is crap and it's just not coming up. Sometimes I just search random things like dark tarot, or I don't know, tree tarot, or watercolor tarot, or just actually sometimes just like really random keywords and just see what comes up, because like sometimes I'll get all kinds of cool things that I'd have no idea and probably would not come up if I actually searched their names, but if I just search like with random terms, it would come up. So there's a lot of different little things with Etsy that you can play around with to try to find things. So and it can be frustrating not knowing about that, because, or I know it was for me, because it's such a useful place to find things, but it's not always the greatest system, because the other thing that I think it does is when you search, I believe it's actually searching like that entire, like the shop's entire collection. So let's say Frog Tarot. Let's say there was a deck called Frog Tarot. I think there is a deck called Frog Tarot. But like, let's say there's a deck called Frog Tarot, and you're like, okay, I should be able to search Frog Tarot, and that should be like the first or second thing that pops up. And it's not. Maybe there's not even like 5 pages in, you still can't find it. There could be a lot of different reasons. But I think one of the reasons is sometimes when you're searching in Etsy, what it's doing is searching that person's entire page, which means maybe they say tarot cards, and maybe they say should sell crochet frogs too. All it knew was that use the word frog and use the word tarot, and this shop has to sell something with a tarot and something with a frog, and so that's what it's giving you. So it's just sort of important to understand, even if like I'm not 100% positive that is what's going on there, but understand sort of the limitations of the search functions in different sites. So like I said, I'm getting real like nitty gritty stupid details that to me are interesting, but are probably just like you've clicked away and like, or like snooze. But if it doesn't make you snooze, and that is something you actually want to know more about or see in action, let me know, and I can do a screen recording and go through these different sites like Kickstarter and Etsy. Like Make Playing Cards is definitely one where I am still in and still lost. But I think there's some better videos out there about that. And if I get any better about that, I could also help with navigation. But yeah, let me know if you want to see a video about navigating these different things and sort of tips and tricks I found, or the way I navigate it. And if you have any, tips for where you go, what you do, how you find stuff, I'd love to see it. So I'm just gonna put some of these new Lenormand decks out to see, because they're small, so they'll fit on here. That's it. I know this was a very long video, but I appreciate your time, and hopefully this was useful to you. Hopefully, even if you didn't find anything that I said useful, hopefully maybe some of these decks are things that you're interested in. I don't know if I'll put all the links, because this is a VR response and I just don't know that I have the energy. But if there's one that you want to know more about and you're having trouble finding it, let me know, and I can send the link if I have not already included it in the description. I'm debating. I just have to rewatch this, and some really bad stuff happened today. Just partly why I made the video. They usually make me feel better. And I just don't know that I have the energy for that. So again, not looking for sympathy, just letting you know why in this particular case I will not probably have gone and put the links, but let me know if any of these decks are things you're interested in, you want the link. I'm happy to provide that. And definitely go check out, I'll have her Sapling Tarot's original video obviously in the description. Check it out. Hers is much shorter, short and sweet and good. I'm a rambler, and that's what this channel is, ASMR, and a lot of it's ASMR rambles. So again, pretty niche, ASMR tarot, ASMR oracle. Yeah, sorry, it's been a weird day. I hope you have a good night, good day, good afternoon, whatever day it is, and I hope to see you again soon on this channel. And if you do if you've seen this video and that Bridget's sapling and you do hers, I'd love in the comments if you let me know, like, you made a video, because I'd love to go check it out. All right, see you soon.